Previously on Judd Wag. I could have cut that quicker. I'm out of practice. Hey, I'm Skip Elsheimer. Welcome to the AV Geeks Lunchtime streaming show. We're back at the archive where we watch old 16mm films. I was at the beer. Burrow Owl. I think I was in your hood. I was in New York, and I saw a beer store in Gowanus, maybe? I don't know. Let me know. Yeah, so I was in Astoria. I went to the Museum of the Moving Image, where there was the Orphans Film Symposium. And it was 4 days of stuff, of which I saw some things but not other things. I kind of went hooky, or played hooky one day, just for my sanity, because what happens is if I sit in a theater for what was basically 12 hours a day, my butt falls asleep. So I was not into that. What do we got? It's April 15th. Enjoy.
Saludos. Trabajamos en su oficina local del Servicio de Impuestos Internos.
Nos estamos aquí todo el año para prestarle asistencia. Por supuesto, las instrucciones contienen las respuestas a la mayoría de sus preguntas.
Si necesita alguna publicación gratis o algunos formularios adicionales, use la hoja de pedido en las instrucciones.
Pero si algún día usted necesita nuestra ayuda, puede llamarnos. Use nuestro servicio telefónico gratis. Recuerde.
Somos el Servicio de Impuestos.
Estamos aquí todo el año.
Para ayudarles.
Who you are and where you live are important when you file your federal income tax return. If your Social Security number or address is wrong on the label that came with your tax form package, change it right on the label itself.
On or before December 31st, you are considered single for the full year and thus cannot file a joint return. Alimony can be taxable to the recipient and deductible to the payor, while child support is neither taxable or deductible. The divorce decree is often the governing factor in determining who may claim dependency exemptions. As you can see, divorce and separation can create a multitude of tax problems. Contributions to charity are some of the most frequently overlooked tax deductions. In addition to gifts of cash, items such as used clothing or furniture are also deductible at fair market value. If you use your car for church work, scouts, or other charities, deduct 6 cents a mile. Gifts of stocks, bonds, or works of art may greatly reduce your tax burden. However, be sure you keep records to back up all claims. Here's good news for taxpayers who use credit cards for purchases. Amounts levied as finance charges on revolving charge accounts are fully deductible according to an Internal Revenue Service ruling. Simply by keeping track of these charges on your monthly statements, you may substantially reduce your tax. This tax saving is retroactive for 3 years. If you have not taken this deduction before, you may file for a refund for prior years. If you are divorced and have children from a previous marriage, and if you are remarried, amounts contributed by your new spouse for the support of your children are considered as being furnished by you in determining major support for the children. There are various effects which this ruling has on divorced parents, and every concerned taxpayer in this situation should investigate these rules. Again this year, taxpayers have the option of filing the regular 1040 long form or the 1040A short form. Care should be used in exercising this option. The IRS has carefully stated that the short form has limitations. It does not offer the deduction advantages of the long form. Deductions such as medical expenses, charitable contributions, interest, taxes, casualty losses, child care expenses, and many others are not available to users of the short form. The long form allows for adjustments to income, such as excludable sick pay, moving expense, and employee business expense. Also lacking on the short form are valuable tax credits, including retirement income and investment credits. Before you use the short form, be sure you're not costing yourself money. Taxpayers who move from one location to another because of their job are often entitled to certain tax advantages. To qualify, you must meet the 50-mile distance and the full-time requirements. Taxpayers who qualify for the moving expense deduction may take the cost of moving to the new job and house hunting trips prior to the move within certain limits. Expenses of selling or leasing the old residence, as well as the new one, are also deductible within certain limits. If you move to a different state, you may have additional problems of how to handle moving expenses. The moving expense deduction is a welcome tax break. Remember, the reimbursement is income, and to avoid paying the tax on this, you must claim the necessary deduction. Mother Nature is sometimes responsible for creating disasters. Our tax system offers a helping hand to the victims. You may deduct the loss from a disaster occurring this year on last year's tax return, even though it has already been filed. Here's how it works. You file your 1973 tax return by April 15th. In July 1974, you suffer a casualty loss by tornado, hurricane, flood, and so forth. And the President proclaims that you're in an official disaster area. You have the option of deducting the loss on next year's tax return or on your 1973 return, even though it has already been filed. Simply file an amended return. Should such a disaster occur in 1974, prior to filing your 1973 return, you may still include the loss on your 1973 tax return. If you are retired or age 65 or over, there are special tax laws which are to your advantage. One important benefit is that certain types of retirement income, such as pensions and annuities, are not completely taxable. Also, with certain qualifications, your tax may be reduced by a credit of 15% of your retirement income. This credit is doubly important because it's a direct dollar-for-dollar reduction of your tax liability. If you sell your residence for more than you paid, you may be able to exclude all of the gain. And in addition, you are entitled to a double personal exemption. These are some of the tax breaks you qualify for by being 65 years old or retired. There are many other benefits that can greatly ease your tax burden. You should seek competent tax help. The common term child care can be misleading because the deduction for this applies not only to dependent children under age 15, but also to the care of a disabled dependent of any age. If these expenses are caused because of your job, you may deduct for the care of the dependent as well as expenses for household services such as a maid or cook. You can even deduct expenses for a day school, nursery, or care in another home. For care outside the home, the deduction can be as much as $200 a month for one child, $300 for two, and $400 for three or more. Your income level can be as much as $18,000 before limitations begin. Many taxpayers will have the benefit of an itemized deduction for child care expenses up to a maximum of $4,800.
So a couple of interesting things there. One, someone pointed out in the comments that the blocks that started H&R Block actually spelled their name with an H on the end, CH. But when they made the company, they changed it to a K because they didn't want people to call it H&R Blotch. And Henry appears with Block and not Blotch, even though his name is Blotch. Fascinating. And the other thing is that those were considered public service announcements, which essentially were free advertising for H&R Block. So they kind of sketchy. And if you look at their Wikipedia page, you'll see examples of how they got in trouble in the past. More recently, them and TurboTax were lobbying to keep tax laws confusing so that people would continue using their services. Also, the promise of free tax filing was brought into question by various attorney generals, and so fascinating. Let's see, what else? Got one more film. Some of these I've shown before, but come on, hey. This is Money, Taxes, and Imagination. Enjoy.
We can dig it out of the ground, or pan it from mountain streams, or turn it out on a printing press. It's all money. It seems to be in plentiful supply, yet most of us never seem to have enough of it. What is money, anyway? In some places, people seem to manage buying and selling with very little of it. In others, they seem to need money by the truckload. But what is it? When a modern John Doe pays his income taxes, exactly what is it he sends to Uncle Sam? Well, he doesn't stuff bills or coins into the envelope. And if he gets a refund, Uncle Sam doesn't send John a sack of gold or silver. What they actually exchange are signatures on pieces of paper. Yet we all agree that money has changed hands. What is money exactly? Well, it depends a great deal upon where you are and when. For instance, the lightest money we know about was the feather money of the New Hebrides. Imagine, if John Doe happened to live in the New Hebrides a number of years ago, he would be paying his taxes in feathers. Whereas on the island of Yap, he would have paid off in large stones.
Taxes here are heavy, man. I mean, heavy.
He should complain. In ancient Ceylon, all money was based on the value of an elephant. Sir Ralph Hawtrey, a British economist, said that money is definable primarily by the use and the purposes which it serves. Well, we know its three main purposes. It is used for barter or trade. It helps us to compare the value of things. Knowing the market price of beef, a farmer can figure out how many cattle he must sell to get a truck. And it's a way of storing our buying power. If we don't use it today, we can put it away and use it later. Those are some of its purposes. But what it actually physically is can be most anything. In our minds, money is what we pay taxes with. But there were times when taxes were paid in human beings. When the Ottoman Turks captured parts of Europe, they enlarged their army by imposing a tax on every Christian family of 1 boy out of 5. The tax boys were taken away and trained for life in the Sultan's army. In ancient Greece and Rome, you paid with your own service. Every citizen was a soldier. In war, each served and supplied his own weapons at his own expense. In King Charlemagne's time, landowners were required to furnish mounted men in numbers relative to the size of their estates.
Sir John, your tax is supposed to be 20 horses and 20 knights. You only paid 19.
According to this form the king sent out, I'm entitled to 1 deduction.
That's right. How did you figure that out?
I took it over to Sir Block.
In England, they taxed land and houses. In the 18th century, tax collectors judged the rental value of a house by going inside and counting the number of hearths or fireplaces. But the housewives did not take kindly to the intrusion, so England passed the window tax. Now, that way, the assessor could stay at a safe distance outside and just count the number of windows. The more windows, the higher the taxes.
49 windows.
Oh, come on. This is outrageous.
At one time in America, you could actually pay your taxes with these. Now, most of us probably think of wampum as something early traders used to rip off the Indians. But for a while, wampum was actually legal tender in some New England states. It was made from the shells of saltwater snails and strung into beads and other ornamental items. See, 6 white beads or 3 black ones equaled 1 penny. After 1649, Massachusetts refused to accept wampum in payment of taxes. The trouble was, it could be made by anybody who could polish a snail shell. And if you stepped on it, it broke. But wampum was ornamental. And in fact, money and ornamentation were long related. Gold and silver were first valued for their ornamental qualities. Even when metal coinage was introduced, many coins were made with holes in them so that they could be more easily strung together as ornaments. Gold has retained its value image from ancient times to the present day. Why? Scarcity played a part. Even today, the amount of gold available represents only a small fraction of the world's money needs. But there are other good reasons for valuing gold. Gold can be remelted dozens of times and remain exactly the same. Gold does not tarnish under normal use. It does not rust. It can be buried in the ground or left on the bottom of the ocean for centuries without seriously deteriorating. And gold is malleable. It can be shaped and worked with ease. So it has always been a favorite of artists and craftsmen. Furthermore, its appeal is universal. John Doe may have trouble palming off seashells and feathers in some areas, but he can buy with gold almost anywhere. The early problem with using gold as money was that it could be debased. And every time it was exchanged, it had to be weighed. And even then, a merchant couldn't be sure when a bit of lead or sand had been added. Well, as a solution to this problem, coinage developed. The gold or silversmith, or the state that struck a coin, assured the public that each piece contained the specified amount of gold or silver. But since coins were often crudely formed, nothing prevented the unscrupulous from shaving a bit from the edge before passing the coin along. A European trick was to use a cross along with fancy edge designs, so one could tell at a glance if a section had been cut away. And that is the reason for the serrated edge on many modern coins. Easier to detect tampering. In any case, there were never enough gold and silver coins to go around. So almost anything, rare or needed, continued to pass for money. Now, this is Chinese tea money, a compressed block of tea, appropriately stamped. You could spend it or store it away, do almost anything with it, I suppose, as long as you kept it out of hot water. In our own country, coins were extremely scarce in the colonial period, so goods or commodities were often used to pay debts and taxes. Iron nails were money, or the equivalent of money. The settlers cut them from rods and shaped them individually, so they were rare and valuable. What were they worth? Well, we still called this a 10-penny nail, which once meant 100 for 10 pennies. Now, that was a worthwhile sum in those days. In fact, people burned down so many old cabins to salvage iron nails from the ashes that laws had to be passed to discourage the practice. In various American colonies, furs, hides, fish, tar, lumber, peas, grains, and livestock passed for money. It's a fact that in the early days at Harvard, a student could pay his tuition with livestock or meat.
I want to study theater.
Paying in commodities created the problem of bulk. A $5 tax in New Hampshire might require giving the government 2,000 feet of lumber, while the same tax in New Jersey could call for 50 pounds of butter. On a hot day, the state assets of New Jersey could melt away fast. Well, naturally, given a choice, the people paid their taxes with anything that had spoiled, mildewed, or lost value. One state had to pass an order saying that taxes could no longer be paid in sick cattle. Corn was commonly used for money. Massachusetts ruled that corn should pass as legal payment for all debts, unless coin or beaver skins were specified. Tobacco was money. The first law passed in Jamestown, Virginia, made tobacco the official currency. And Virginia's first tax was a poll tax of 1 pound of tobacco per voter. In Maryland, taxes and the salaries of ministers were paid in tobacco. Even so, taxes for running state governments were hard to collect. When Governor Johnson of North Carolina died in 1752, the people still owed him 13 years' back salary. A type of paper money common in those days was the crop note, or tobacco note. simply a note stating that you had so much grain or tobacco in a public warehouse. The notes could then be exchanged for money. Even earlier in history, as world trade increased, people needed more and lighter weight forms of money. So, a system had developed wherein precious metals could be left stored with goldsmiths or in banks, and the receipts or paper notes could be exchanged instead. These were simply banknotes, redeemable in precious metals. This paper money was easier to carry and handle and gained wide popularity. Banks soon discovered that people did not cash in all banknotes immediately. Gold and silver tended to remain in safekeeping, while the notes passed from hand to hand. The banks, therefore, could issue more notes than they actually had gold or silver to cover, thus increasing the supply of money or exchange tokens. This worked fine, except when it was miscalculated, and too many John Does brought notes in for exchange, in which case the gold reserves would be drained, and some note holders left with worthless paper. Such bank failures eventually led to states and nations assuming control over the issuance of notes. But even so, until the 1930s, the value of most of those notes was closely linked to their being exchangeable for precious metals. In most of the world, well, this is no longer true. The dollars that we use today are not printed guarantees that there is that much gold or silver available. What is this money then? What is it worth? Precise explanations vary, but it boils down to the fact that it is worth what people agree it is worth. But then the same thing could be said of gold. A paper dollar represents, in effect, a share in the total resources and production power of a nation. It is equal in value to so much wheat, or cotton, or fabrics, or personal services, or whatever. Though exactly how much of any one item it will purchase constantly varies. The value, some economists point out, is backed by the government's power to tax. So when today's John Doe pays his income tax, what he is giving the government is a share of what he has produced, or of the energy he has expended in working, or of the knowledge for which he has been paid. From exchanging goods and trinkets, to exchanging metals, to exchanging banknotes, we developed to where bank deposits became money. With the personal check, we literally write our own money. It entitles the recipient to a share of the signer's bank deposit. Money may even be just a promise. With a credit card, the buyer may barter for the merchant's goods with funds she will not have in the bank until some future date, and has not even earned yet. What will money be in the future? Well, it may be invisible. Perhaps only magnetic impulses or holes punched in a computer tape. Money might simply be what happens when we press a button. Careful, that's the wrong button. whatever the form it takes, money will continue to be the tool we use for comparing the values of diverse items and activities and settling the difference. And it will always be related to our material ambitions, our productivity, our transactions, and our desires.
I forgot that was also sponsored by H&R Block, or Blotch. Okay, so behind me I have a film set up on the scanner, and this has nothing to do with taxes and tax day. This is just a film that I was like, oh, I don't think I've seen this. This is a Mormon Church of Latter-day Saints film about the opening of the new temple in D.C., or on the outskirts of D.C., Washington, D.C., and the one that I remember as a kid, the first time I kind of made my way up there, seeing that somebody thought that it looked like the Emerald City, and they had like graffitied "Surrender Dorothy" on a overpass over the highway, and so anyways, that's my pleasant memory of that. All right, here we go. Let's watch, that's not what this is. Let's watch Washington, D.C. Temple. I don't know what the actual title is, but enjoy. Having some tension problems. 1 second. Come on.
Certainly will be a tremendous addition to the great monuments, religious monuments of Washington, along with the other two great cathedrals that are here.
I think the temple itself is probably one of the most beautiful buildings I've ever seen in my life. And we're absolutely delighted that it's located here in Maryland. It certainly adds something to our state.
I said I think it's fantastic. It's just fantastic.
Why?
I'm not sure why, but that's how I feel.
I just thought it was fun. I liked it a whole lot. I liked all the different things in it and the colors and everything. It looks real pretty.
The serenity of it was the thing that struck me most. It's just a peaceful serenity.
Yeah, it's very elaborate. On the other hand, it seems like there's an awful lot of almost luxurious, let me put it this way. The whole thing to me is, I mean, the crystal chandeliers and the cushions and the whole bit.
When we began, we wondered how we might best cause people to want to come. And the interest that has been manifest in coming to see the temple has been greater than any of us ever expected. And here we are before the opening for the general public, and all of the tickets that we had planned to control the traffic here are already gone.
When all the telephones were ringing at once, well, sometimes we would turn the bell completely off with the understanding that the woman who was sitting there, as soon as she hung it up, would take it up again because someone would be there. Because the noise became so loud and so bothersome to the other people who were trying to take orders on the telephones that we couldn't cope.
One customer called the telephone company and complained that she'd been trying for 3 days to get through, he explained that we had 10 telephones manned constantly, but he says, Madam, if they had 100 telephones, it still wouldn't take care of the demand that we have for tickets to go through the Mormon temple.
Washington, D.C., capital of the United States of America, a city of well-known monuments. Now a new landmark has arisen, and it too is receiving a prestigious welcome.
How do you do? Yeah.
President and Mrs. Ford joining in a reception with Spencer W. Kimball, President of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, and his wife. The Mormon Tabernacle Choir invited to perform in the Kennedy Center. All this to commemorate the completion of a striking new edifice just a few minutes outside of downtown Washington. Taking the Capitol Beltway toward Kensington, Maryland, you come over a rise, and there it is, lifting majestically above the landscape, the Washington Temple of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, or Mormons. 173,000 square feet of white Alabama marble, 6 liquid gold-covered spires, rising nearly 300 feet above the ground, and perched atop the highest, a 2.5-ton gold leaf statue of an angel called Moroni. With an ancient scripture in one arm and a trumpet to his lips, he heralds his message to the world beyond. From any angle, it is a spectacular sight, the newest landmark on the Capitol horizon. On September 9th, President Spencer W. Kimball, world leader of 3.5 million Mormons, and his second counselor, Marion G. Romney, arrived to seal the cornerstone, officially completing 3 years and $15 million worth of construction. An interesting sidelight is the fact that this temple, as with all Mormon temples, was completely paid for before the cornerstone was laid. Then, as is traditional, for a few weeks prior to dedication, visitors are invited to view the temple and its grounds. During the ceremony, President Romney explained the temple to an interested press and public.
We're here to mark the completion of the erection of this magnificent temple. A temple is not an ordinary meeting house. A temple is the house of God. It belongs to God. It's his dwelling place. From the earliest times, people who have known the true and living God have builded houses to him. It's a place where God reveals his presence to his faithful saints.
You could almost feel the presence of the Lord there. That's what I feel. I don't know about the others, but that's what I personally feel. It's nothing outside the world, that can be compared to.
Well, this was a real, truly great experience for me. I think the temple is one of great beauty and a great addition to our surroundings here in Washington, and it's really an inspiration to all of us. And I don't know when I have enjoyed anything quite so much. It's, in my mind, a wonderful creation of 6 years, and it stands high on the outskirts of our city, and for all of the people here on the East Coast to observe.
I'm from Ohio. My wife's from Indiana. We're both Methodists.
It's a place of worship, and of course we worship the same God and we worship the same Christ. And so for that reason I feel a worshipful attitude as I walk through the building today.
There are certain sacraments that take place in this building that I think we all believe in. And I certainly wouldn't be one to find fault with the way a group of people decide to carry out those sacraments.
sometimes I think we have to spend money on creating more beautiful things, that life is more than just, eating and sleeping, that life is made up of beauty, and this is certainly a thing of beauty.
Very impressive, very inspiring. I would call it simple rather than ostentatious.
It's a great building, isn't it? Huh? Great church. Most interesting visit.
Oh, it's very beautiful and inspiring. It's just fantastic.
What do you mean when you say it's inspiring? What does that mean?
Well, anything that causes you to look up and think about things that have eternal significance.
And beauty.
And beauty, I think that's inspiring.
This is going to be here permanently for a permanent good for many people who aren't even born today.
Very beautiful. It's very massive and very, I think it's impressive the only word.
Baptismal fount.
Why was that significant to you?
It was, well, they had the oxen representing the 12 tribes of Israel, and the size of it, I don't know why it was so big.
Or did it mean anything to you?
Yeah.
What did you think about it?
I thought it was beautiful. I mean, the whole concept of it just seems beautiful. I really have never been, into anything Mormon or anything, or even known about it, but I'm interested.
Temples to the true and living God are built by His faithful saints, often at great sacrifice, and they're always built with the finest materials and by the finest craftsmen that can be assembled.
Well, you think that you know that it's going to be the house of the Lord, and it just has to be right, and it has to be the best, and you do everything to make it as fine as you possibly can.
The temple is an intriguing structure. It is 16 stories high, but has only 9 levels. It is laced with thin marble windows, invisible during the day, and has a fluting-like vertical design that seems to lift the eyes to the spires above. From any angle, its glistening walls are reaching skyward, as is Moroni, who, according to Mormon theology, was an ancient American prophet. Fortunately, there are guides to answer questions and explain the significance of details, like the symbolic medallions on brass doors found on all entrances to the temple, medallions representing such things as the stars, the earth, and the 7 dispensations of time, or the inscriptions on outer walls, and of course the artistry of hand-laid, faceted glass windows. The glass is about 1 inch thick and is chipped or faceted on one face to increase the natural brilliance. The tracery is a part of the pointed arch motif used throughout the building. By day or night, the windows make a colorful accent to the marble finish.
The craftsmen did such an exquisite job that it's hard to believe that it could be done now when everything is made out of plastic and houses are boxes. That the craftsmen who did this were so fortunate, and the architects, because the work is just, the marble is so thin, it's transparent in the windows. The stained glass is done by hand and set into stone. This is exquisite, and I don't think the craftsmen could find this kind of work anywhere else. I wonder what the men are doing. And to be able to have this opportunity to work on such a beautiful piece of art.
It's a feeling of pride of doing the very best, and I think I've watched it through the building. I've seen many, many examples inside the building where it could have been hidden and was going to be hidden. What they were doing, you would never see afterwards. And still the workmen weren't satisfied and took it down and did it over because of their pride.
We can sometimes do much with detail and just the way a building is put together without having to go to great extravagance to achieve it. And I think that this is part of the inspiration that we have received, that we've been able to achieve a fine building, a delightful building, an inspirational building without just going all out of bounds as far as the price tag is concerned.
The temple is for special ordinances, the eternal marriages,
and the baptisms for the dead, remembering that Paul said, else what shall they do which are baptized for the dead if the dead rise not at all? Why then are they baptized for the dead? So this is not new to the world. It's the revival or restoration of many of the blessings that have been known before.
Well, when you talk about many of the blessings that have been known before, I hear many times you're talking about the unifying of the family. How does the temple come into that?
Yes, the temple is basic in the lives of families. The father and the mother are married for time and all eternity by authority which has been granted by the Lord Jesus Christ to his leaders. That cements the father and the mother together. Then when children are born, they're born what we call under the covenant, and they belong to their parents forever.
As we return and do work for our ancestors in the temple here, we are reminded of the covenants that we made at marriage. We are also reminded of the instructions that we have received here as to our purpose here in life, why we have come to this earth, and what our objectives as a family should be.
The most important thing to us is that we can be together eternally, that this marriage of ours is not just, for this life, it's for always, and we'll always have our children with us. And taking it further, we'll be with our parents and their parents, and I look forward to a happy reunion with my Heavenly Father someday.
I think that if you really love your family, if you want to be with them, there's no greater blessing than being able to seal yourself with them for eternity.
I'm going to be married in that temple, this one, for all time and eternity, to a guy I really love.
There's lots of things I should say. It's very interesting.
What's are you a Mormon?
Yes.
What does the temple mean to you?
It means a place where where family stays together and stuff.
Where family stays together.
Or it keeps the family together.
Do you want to be kept together with your family?
Yes.
Why?
Because then when we go up to heaven, we'll all be still a family.
I was baptized in 1906, August the 19th. I was baptized by Elder Thomas E. Ricks and confirmed by Elder J.C. Farr.
What has this temple meant to you, the building of it?
Well, I don't know. All I can say, it has made me feel very happy. I've felt so happy since I've been here. I don't know what to do. I didn't know. I know it is the true gospel of Jesus Christ, and that this is God's work that's going on. And I'm so thankful that he's let me stay here long enough to see this.
It's really a standard of truth that the world is looking up to, and it's kind of ironic in a way, but people are looking up to it, and they're trying to fathom what it means to them. But we in the church, I feel it's something beautiful, something firm and solid that gives us a way of happiness if we so choose. It means family unity, eternal aspects that are really consolation to me. I recently lost my grandmother, and my family grieved quite heavily over it, but if they really understood the eternal plan and the meaning of temples and what we can do, it would put a lot more peace in their soul and a lot more comfort in their expectations of this life.
I think it means a lot of chances for a lot of people to, in this area, even if they're Mormons, to grow greater in their knowledge of the Lord's dealings and plannings and preparation for them.
This building of the temple is something special. It has a lot of purposes that are really important. Marriage for time and eternity, and baptisms for the dead, and work for the dead, and sealings for the dead, and so forth. We think are of tremendous importance. The church, has spent millions of dollars in getting genealogy and finding out about our ancestors so that work can be done for those people. So the temple work is a vital part of the work in this church.
So it's really a family church. Everything is based on the family. That's the basic unit. That's what the Lord wants. He's designed his church that the family's the key effort, and it's all built around it. We come to the temple to be sealed, and that family unit will last forever.
As I said before, it's kind of fruitless to think things at the end would really end here, and that by the promises of a temple, that I can have a choice woman for a wife and have a family and really increase that love through a family unit, and which will conquer death. It's really great.
I don't know what I'd do if I didn't think that I could stay with this lovely family. The Lord sent them to me to trust them to me for a short while and to raise them and to train them, and then they'll do the same for other spirits, and I'd be kind of lost if I couldn't keep them.
Wouldn't you want your children to be with you and to be with your parents again?
To Mormons, this is truly the house of the Lord. Entrance to the temple is through this annex. After dedication, faithful members of the church will pass through here into the temple proper to participate in the highest sacraments of their faith. The annex connects with the temple via a 90-foot glass-enclosed bridge. Mormons believe in a living Christ. Consequently, the only mural in the temple depicts the Savior's second coming. He's shown here on the morning of the first resurrection, when the righteous of all nations are caught up to meet him, and the wicked, out of guilt and shame, shrink from his presence. Everywhere there is a sense of simple elegance and a reverence for fine craftsmanship. There's a small chapel for assembly before continuing through the temple. Its gold-tipped organ pipes are reminiscent of the spires atop the temple itself. This is the bride's room, where young women wait to be married for time and all eternity. The celestial room, symbolizing the fulfillment of a righteous life, eternal exaltation in the kingdom of God. In this lounge, people wait before receiving an explanation of man's and woman's eternal journey. This is one of several sealing rooms, where couples kneel facing each other to be united in marriage for time and for all eternity. These sealings, as they are called, and all other ordinances performed in the temple, are available through living proxies to ancestors and others who have died without having these privileges. And there are always the never-ending reflections in the mirrors, reminding one of the eternal nature of the marriage and family covenants. From here you move to the highest level of the temple. This is the solemn assembly room, where the dedicatory services of the temple will be held. It may also be used for other meetings convened by the leadership of the church. Now you descend to the lower level to observe the baptismal font. It rests on the backs of 12 oxen, symbolic of the ancient 12 tribes of Israel. It is here that vicarious baptisms are performed by immersion of a living proxy representing a deceased ancestor. After the temple is dedicated for the purpose of fulfilling sacred ordinances, it will be closed to the general public and used to unite families, past and present, into one eternal bond.
Time will not permit us to go into further detail, but to say to you that we're a temple-building people. We believe in eternity. We believe in permanence. We believe in righteousness. And we believe that the Lord is at the helm, and his revelations will continue to direct us in the paths that we should go.
Let us live to make men free while God is marching on. Glory, glory, hallelujah. Glory, glory, hallelujah. Glory, glory, hallelujah. His truth is marching on.
Woo! That was a lot. That was intense. But Kimball showed up. He shows up in Morality for Youth. He's the narrator. Well, he's not a narrator. There's excerpts from his various presentations, speeches about how damnable masturbation is, and among other temptations to young people. So there he is. He showed up. And Betty Ford showed up. Good times. And I thank you for showing up. How's that for a transition? Happy to be back in the archive. Had a great time in New York, but happy to be back showing you some new films that we haven't watched before. And that was an example of one. Join us tomorrow, Tuesday, and let's watch some more films together. If you like what you saw, you can hit the thumbs up, you can hit the like button, you can hit subscribe. Those are great ways to support us. You can watch videos, other videos or films that we have on our site and YouTube. We do get a little bit of ad revenue for that. And also the people who own the background music intellectual property, they get some money too. Oh well, that's life. You can also go to ko-fi.com/avgeeks or patreon.com/avgeeks. Those are other ways you can support us. And the background music, big background music is what we should call them. They don't get a cut of that. So thank you, Jeremy, for contributing. Yeah, we'll be back tomorrow. It's nice outside. It's going to get gross, I know, but I'm going to go outside. Everybody take care. See you soon. Bye.